Welcome to Deep in the Valley, a Missouri Valley basketball podcast. I'm Dr. Chris Bowser, joined as always by Brian Dutler, and this is your home for everything happening across the valley, from Cedar Falls to Des Moines, Nashville to Normal, Carbondale to Chicago. We're talking the schools, the coaches, former players, and all the stories that make the Valley one of the most historic and respected athletic leagues in all of college sports. So wherever you are in the Valley, you're in the right place. Let's get deep into the Valley. On this week's episode, we're joined by one of the most successful and respected coaches in all of mid-major basketball. From his roots in Coggon, Iowa, to playing at Wayne State, learning under coaches like Greg McDermott, to building championship culture at South Dakota State, and now leading one of the premier jobs in the Missouri Valley Conference at Drake. His coaching journey has been built on player development, toughness, positive culture, and winning. After 6 incredible seasons leading the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, Coach Henderson arrived in Des Moines ahead of the 25-26 season. Now, with one Valley season under his belt, he's been busy building the second edition of the Drake program to take on the challenges of 2026 and beyond. Coach Henderson, we're excited to have you with us. Welcome to Deep in the Valley.
Fellas, it's great to be on, and certainly appreciate what you guys do for our league and all the publicity that we get from it. And I just tell you this much, I love being a part of it. Like you said, the historical aspect of it was a big part of why I decided to leave South Dakota State and come to Drake. Growing up in Eastern Iowa and around UNI and Drake and just understanding what the Valley was all about, it was certainly something I wanted to be a part of. So it's great to be on the show, fellas.
Thanks, buddy. We are going to have to make a mention that you are the first current sitting head coach of the Missouri Valley Conference to be on Deep in the Valley. So we're honored to have you with us, and hopefully a lot of other coaches will follow suit.
I'm sure they will.
Good. Every story's got a beginning, and Bows mentioned a little bit about the small town roots and growing up in that small town basketball environment at Maquoketa Valley. How did that community shape you both as a player and as a person growing up?
Yeah, Brian, it's funny you asked that, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere, honestly. I had 5 miles to not a town, but to pavement. And there's a beautiful thing about that, though. You learn how to work, you learn how to find the joy in things. And I was very fortunate to play for a high school coach that was really innovative. Coach Runquist was somebody that took me under his wing very early in my journey. I remember he had one spot. He always took these teams over to Australia, and after they graduated high school, and I was very fortunate. Somebody backed out late minute when I was a sophomore, and he said, "Hendo, I need you to join me, and I need another guy on this roster." And it was one of the best things for me. But I learned how to play physical and fast, but most importantly, Coach, he always made the game enjoyable. And even to this day, I'll never, ever forget it. He had camps at a very early age, and he always brought in an Iowa Hawkeye the last day of camp. And all of us just swelled with, oh, we want to be like Roy Marble. We want to be like BJ Armstrong. We want to be like Brad Lowhouse, all these guys. And so it just motivated us and made it fun and made it enjoyable for us. And I'll tell you what, you'll never lose that. And the other thing I think coming from those small town roots is just not afraid to get your hands dirty, not worried about, oh, I'm a head coach or I'm an assistant coach or whatever. You're willing to do it all. I still remember Coach Runquist. He mopped the floor before every single practice. And so just that humility, and then obviously the hard work. My dad was a dairy farmer, and just being able to get the job done. And when things are hard, you rely on character and hard work. And really, that's something that I'm very thankful. I had many parents. I live with my mom. My mom and dad were divorced, but I have many friends that I would stay overnight with, and they just treated me like their own. And when you grow up in a small town, I think you learn how to treat people like that. And it's something I'm forever grateful for.
That's awesome. Coach, college choice is one of my favorite topics. It's been a part of my career for more than 2 decades. Can you talk a little bit about, coming from Maquoketa Valley, a little bit about why Wayne State College felt like the right fit coming out of high school in 1996?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. When you don't have many options, that's part of it. Fortunately, I was 6'7", right? And I was a fairly good athlete. I can't shoot. I couldn't really score. If I could have went to, honestly, UNI was recruiting me a little bit and it just fizzled out. I didn't really develop probably as fast as they would have liked, or I was really skinny as a high school player. And so just probably lacked some of those things that would have made me a Division I player. But boy, did it work out the best way it possibly could have. After my senior year, I really didn't know where I was going. And Coach McDermott said, "Hey, Hendo," he saw me at a Future Stars camp as an unsigned senior, ironically in the Knapp Center, and which is pretty cool to think about looking back. But I had a pretty good showing there. And Coach said, "Hey, what do you think about coming to Wayne State?" And honestly, I didn't know much about Coach, and they weren't very good at that time. After his first couple of years, they were okay. You could see they were improving. But him from being from Cascade, which was only probably 15 miles from where I grew up, there was just probably a little bit more of a comfort level knowing that, hey, he's a Eastern Iowa guy. And and I say that jokingly, but I didn't have a lot of options. And I wanted to continue to play basketball. I wanted to get away from home a little bit. And Brad Jones, who was one of my teammates, he went on the visit the same day I did. And he said, "Hey, are you going to end up here?" And I said, "Probably. I don't really have any other place to go." And so we both decided we were going to do it. And he's been my best friend ever since. It was certainly, I'm very lucky to be able to be in that situation and learn from Coach Mack. As you guys know, he's one of the best.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us to the next one here is you got to play for Coach Mack at Wayne State. Then you worked for him at Iowa State as well. And can you share a little bit about what you learned from your playing days under Coach Mack and then working on his staff as well?
Yeah, I think obviously he's got so many great qualities, but the thing that really stands out to me, and one of the things that I've probably taken from Coach Mack the most, is just the value that he has in everybody that's part of the program and how he treats people. And for example, like I really was, I didn't score very well. I was a good rebounder and I was a good defender, but Coach Mack made me feel like I was the most important piece of this team's success. And I know that he made everybody else on the team feel the exact same way, whether it was the manager, whether it was one of the assistant coaches, whether it was the leading scorer or a role player like myself. He said, "Hendo, we would not be able to do what we're doing without you." Even though looking back on it, I know they could have, but that's how he made me feel. And that's how he makes everybody feel. And so that's something that's really important to me as I've gone through this transition, whether I was a high school principal or head Division I basketball coach, is to try to make people feel that way and make them feel valued and make sure they understand the difference that they're making and how important they are, whether that's a player, a coach, a manager, or whatever. And then when I was with Coach Mack at Iowa State, to put it bluntly, we were not very good. But during some of those moments, and even last year as the first year as a head coach at Drake, some tough moments, right? Yep. But they can be some of the best times to learn. And when I look back at that time when I was with Coach Mack from Iowa State, when I was with him at Iowa State, I just think you can get a little bit away from who you are every once in a while, and it really challenges you. And I think maybe that happened. And so just to really, and I'm not saying Mac changed who he was or anything. I'm not necessarily saying that, but whether it's a play style, whether it's something else, you really need to stay true to who you are and understand the values that you have and what has been successful. Just because you're changing levels, you're changing scenery, you have to really be true to who you are as a person. And I think when you do that, success will follow. And obviously what he's done since then is remarkable. So that was a couple things.
Yeah. So you've coached at multiple levels in different programs, right? You've coached with a lot of different head coaches, Iowa State, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, now Drake. Looking back, how important were those years as an assistant coach in preparing you to lead your own program, and maybe touch on a couple of different things that you maybe learned from each head coach along the way?
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about life. And everybody has a little bit of a different story, right? I don't think many Division I head coaches have been second grade teachers and high school principals and have been into college, got out of college, got back. And now, like you guys said at the start of the show, I understand how lucky I am to be the head coach at Drake. I'm a very fortunate dude, and you have to be around some good people along the way and learn from them. And I've certainly shared the stories about Mac. Dave Richmond at North Dakota State has done a terrific job in a very similar deal. He really, and he'll tell you this too, he's not for everybody, but he is so committed to how he wants to do things. And he's so talented in that. And I watch him from afar, and just being with him, just his ability to discipline, his ability to hold people accountable, even during the tough times, is really impressive. That I just had a great time learning from him. And I have a lot of thankfulness to him, because he's really the one that kind of got me back into the college game after I was, a high school coach. And for him to trust me and take a chance on me, obviously was pretty, he took a chance. There's no doubt. And it was a fun ride with him for a couple years. But then TJ and I's relationship from before, I just decided that I wanted to go be his right-hand man at South Dakota State. And wow, is TJ, is he an unbelievable coach? And how he recruits and how he can develop relationships with young people is second to none. And man, I really learned a lot, especially with the recruiting process. And then he's certainly, now obviously people are seeing it more and more, but he's such an underrated X's and O's per se basketball coach, and how he relies and trusts the people around him to do their specialty. I don't even want to call it a job, is so impressive. It really is. And then the last thing I'd say is just his ability to understand the situation he's in, because every job's a little bit different. And, when we were at South Dakota State, we were one of the best offensive teams in the country. And some of that had to do with the personnel. Mike Dom was an incredible player, but how he's been able to adapt his coaching philosophy and understand the situation where he's at, because you do have to be able to adapt some. You want to stay true to yourself, but being able to adapt and understand your situation, holy cow. It's like he's just done a 180. It's so impressive. And so those are just some things. Both those guys, Dave and TJ and Mac, and when I was an AD at the high school, the principal that I had, Greg Groth, was incredible, a mentor of mine, and you learn every step of the way.
Yep. Kind of get into a little bit about building South Dakota State and understanding the Valley here a little bit, but building that championship culture in that program. You run South Dakota State, your run was remarkable. Conference championships, NCAA tournament appearances, and one of the most consistent, successful mid-major programs that was in the country. When you took over that program, what were some of the foundational things that you wanted to have your culture built on, some of those non-negotiables that are important to you?
Yeah, it became, as I took over for TJ, obviously I wasn't starting from scratch. I mean, and that was before the transfer portal and that had really hit. And so I wasn't. So some of that culture stuff was already established. And I was a part of some of that too, building that with TJ, right? But you do want to put your own fingerprints on it and handprint on it when you do take over a program. And we just kind of built it on character and driven thinking. We decided to come up with 5 character traits that our program was going to stand for through thick and thin, because you never know how it's going to go, right? And it's really important, I think, that you have that foundation to fall back onto when it's good and bad. And we came up with 5 character traits: honesty, respect, selflessness, communication, and compete, which we wanted to be known for. And I think we did a pretty good job for that. And when things get hard and you have to make really hard decisions, which we all do it, whether we're a coach, whether we're a teacher, whether we're a banker or whatever we're doing, there's hard decisions you have to make as a dad and a husband, right? And so when you have that foundation, it makes it a little bit easier to get through those times. And fortunately, we didn't have too many of those times as far as wins and losses at South Dakota State, but we had to make tough decisions at times. And when you can make decisions based on honesty, respect, selflessness, communication, and compete, you got to live with the results, whether they're good or they're bad. And so that's what we decided to do. And it worked out pretty well. And that's what we're doing similar. And as we transitioned over to Drake, that was very much a similar deal. We talked about the same character traits, and it was so important because we had some tough stretches throughout the year, as you guys are well aware. And as far as wins and losses go, and when you make the hard choices based on those, you can live with them. That doesn't mean you don't learn, then grow and change as you move forward, but you can live with the results. And we didn't win near as many games as we would have liked this first year, but understanding that this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how the decisions are going to be made, at least that foundation was built.
Yeah, your team's really dominated Summer League play. Your record, I think it was 129-60 overall. It posted an impressive 76-20 league record while you're at South Dakota State in that town span. As you transitioned to the Valley this year, what were some of the things that jumped out to you as differences between the two conferences during your first season?
Yeah, honestly, it's size, physicality, tempo, defensive pressure are probably some of the things that stood out the most. And this isn't necessarily a different thing, but I think retention and the importance of retention with your roster is a huge deal. But those are probably in athleticism, it's a little bit, it's more. They're more athletic, they're a little bigger, they're a little more physical. The Summit League was maybe a little bit more of an offensive oriented league where there's some grinders that you got to find a way to win here in the Valley. And as we went through it this year, that caught up to us a little bit at times. We didn't have a ton of experience with playing with each other. So the retention piece, the continuity piece was certainly missing. We played fairly young guys, especially in the post, and that caught up to us with the physicality and the athleticism and size and rebounding. And then just, we didn't have a ton of depth as far as guarding the basketball and the athleticism to keep the ball in front of us. And so obviously those are some of the things we tried to address moving forward. But that's when you say, hey, Hendo, you were at the Summit League for 9 years and now you came into the Valley. What stood out for you? And I knew it was going to be more physical. I knew it was going to be a little more athletic. We played Valley teams when we were at South Dakota State. That wasn't necessarily surprising. But when you go through it throughout the gauntlet of a 20-game schedule, it maybe was a little bit more than I anticipated.
So for fans that maybe don't understand all the nuances, talk maybe just a little bit about what it's like to go through the season then. You just mentioned the gauntlet, right? Having a 20-game season. What's that to prepare for mentally and physically?
Yeah, it's enjoyable. That's what, come on now. I mean, the fire's got to burn right inside you, and it does in all of the coaches in the Valley. So I'm not unique to that, but if you don't get fired up for that, you probably should be trying something different. That the excitement to go into other places and compete, put yourself in a position to win, that's fun. And there were some teams this year, with it being our first year, that were hard matchups for us, but every night you try to, it's probably going to come down, for the most part. We got whacked a few times, but for the most part, it's going to come down to the last 4 minutes of the game. And so you want to kind of play the game in increments and put yourself in a position to have a chance. And fortunately, we did that a fair amount. Now, we weren't on the right end of the stick as much as we would have liked, but we want to continue to do that. And being able to bring back guys, and you talk about preparing for that gauntlet, that's why I think retention is so huge. We want to have guys that have experienced that. You look at the teams that had the most success last year, Northern Iowa, obviously they brought back a ton of guys. Illinois State brought back a ton of guys. Belmont had brought back a ton of guys. Guess what? Those guys were the guys at the top. And there's others too. I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but that's why it's so huge and was so important to us. You're going to get challenged. The other coach on the other sideline you can go right down the line. I have respect for all of them. So the team that you're going to go against is well coached. They're going to play physical. And that was the rebounding factor. I had Oscar Clough my last year at South Dakota State, but we were a good rebounding team pretty much every year I was there. And we have one of the best in the country. And then last year, we were not good rebounding. We were extremes. And so that part was really challenging. You live and learn a little bit. And I know that's hard to say sometimes, but I'm not a guy that's going to look back and sulk and feel sorry for myself. I don't do that, man. I learn. I'm an educator. I'm going to grow, and we're going to make a few different decisions that we made in the past. And we're going to put our best step forward.
So one of the things I think people around the country already are noticing about about your building your second roster. Analytics experts are ranking Drake near the top of the valley because of the combination of continuity, transfer portal additions, and then high school recruiting. Evan Mia has ranked your roster as number one in the valley for the upcoming season and 65th nationally in the portal and number 69 nationally for incoming freshmen. Can you talk to us about your approach about building a roster? You've alluded to it already with retention and continuity, but then as you're adding to the roster, what was a little bit about your philosophy about building your roster for the gauntlet of the valley in today's college basketball landscape?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Brian and Chris. I'm very fortunate. I got great guys that I work with every single day. The group that we have on our staff, we certainly don't agree with everything, but we have a great amount of respect for each other. We love each other. And when you want a team to be connected, I think they need an example, and that's important to me. And so I'm very fortunate. And they worked hard, and we had some specific needs that we wanted. When we got our young guys before the season even started with Dothan and Myers, we wanted guys that have good positional size. We want skill. And we think we found that in both of those guys. And so we're stoked about those two guys. Both came from programs that have won at a very high level, which is something that was very important for us when we looked at the portal this spring. We wanted to make sure that we found guys that have been through big games and have had success and have won. We thought that was really important, and we're super stoked with the guys that we got. Some of the other things that we really wanted to address in the portal was on-ball defense, our ability to guard the ball, and then rebounding and some athleticism in the front court. And those analytics, it makes me proud of our coaches, but at the end of the day, it still needs to get done on the court. But they've proven that. You look at experience with Gabe being the leading rebounder in the Summit League last year. That's huge. John Carroll being one of the, I think, best big men and versatile forwards in the Ohio Valley last year. Again, he was either second or third in rebounding in the Ohio Valley. That was important for us to address. And so we felt like we did that. And then Dre at Wichita State, we loved how he performed in late game situations. His ability to guard the ball was something that we really wanted to address. We have a couple guys that probably go unnoticed a little bit. We have a couple guys that redshirted, which is going away, it looks like. But we've had a great amount of success with. Bryson Ball was the player of the year out of the state of Nebraska. His sister's an All-American player at Nebraska for the softball team, and so he's got good genes. We're super stoked about him. He had an incredible year. LJ Rush was also another red shirt that brings some dynamic athleticism, ability to guard the ball. And Bryson's sake, he was one of the hardest guys that I've ever had to decide whether I felt like it was best for him to redshirt or not. He certainly could have impacted us this year, but we don't look back. At the end of the day, it was the best thing forward, right, for him. And the amount he grew this year was incredible. And so there's a lot of things. Justin Burns was a guy that we got out of Northwest Florida, which the Bulldogs have had some success with guys from there. So we said, well, let's try that again more. Yeah. But man, he plays with incredible motor, makes everyone around him better. They've won at a high level. And I think that's probably the theme that you can see when you look at who we tried to bring in. Some athleticism, rebounding, on-ball defense comes from winning cultures.
Yep. So it's for fans that may be watching your team closely in the upcoming season, when they turn on a Drake game, what do you want those fans to look for? What kind of style, tempo kind of defines you in Drake basketball heading into the season?
Yeah, I think number one, it starts with one of our character traits that we talk about all the time, and that's selflessness. I hope people see a great amount of selflessness on the floor, whether that's giving high fives to their teammates, getting over mistakes, helping their teammates get over mistakes, not making it about themselves if they make a big play. That I hope we're going to continue to grow in that area. I can promise you that. And we showed signs of that last year, but we need to be more consistent with that. And so that's what I hope they can see this year at a high level. I like to think we're going to be a good rebounding team. We've always been, and I didn't do a great job of teaching it, holding our guys accountable for it last year, but we've been that way for a long time, and we're going to be that way again. And then just the other thing that we've had great amount of success is offensively, we let our guys play with a great amount of freedom. We want our guys to be super confident. We want to play inside out. There's multiple ways to get paint touches, but we want to make sure we're getting them. We've been super efficient offensively for a long time. And I think we've got the roster to make sure that's what our squad looks like again this year.
So, Coach, I've always really enjoyed talking to coaches about building their programs. Does the style of play for Drake that you just kind of described to Brian reflect your personality? And if so, kind of what are some of the pillars of your personality that shine through in your program?
Yeah, and I don't love talking about myself, to be frank with you, but I get told that I'm a positive dude, that I try to make others feel good about themselves. And ever since I've been that second grade teacher, I want them to enjoy themselves. And so I think that probably resonates, hopefully, from myself and our staff into our team. We want to make sure that they enjoy every single day. We're so fortunate to get to do what we do, but probably even more fortunate to get to do it where we do it. You guys know, obviously, Darren did an incredible job of kind of bringing a lot. There's others before, Dr. Tom Davis, other guys too, but really when Darren took over, he rejuvenated this place in a big way. And Darren actually was one of my AAU coaches, along with Gary Rima, who Chris well. But this program, I'm not building it from scratch. The support from our fans is incredible. Even through some tough times this year, it was incredible. And I'm so thankful for that. The administration, our athletic director, Brian Harden, President Dr. Martin, they're just fantastic. And you never want to go to a place where the expectations outweigh the support. And I don't feel that way here. And that's a great feeling to have. And so it's not about me. I'll be honest with you. It's not about me, what those guys did before me. We hit a few bumps in the road, but it's not going to last long, I can promise you.
We had Kevin Lehman on, and when he spoke about you, one of the best characteristic traits that he said was your positivity. And he said he really does approach building a basketball program, coaching in a game, running a shoot around like a second grade teacher, like trying to make it as fun as possible and trying to keep his guys as positive as humanly possible. So it's kind of fun to hear you talk about that, even though you don't like to talk about yourself, kind of reflecting what others have said about you.
Yeah, and you know what? It is nice to hear that, and it can help you get through some challenging times. But you have to, it's important with that positivity. I don't want people to get it twisted. There still has to be a high level of accountability, right? And sometimes accountability is hard and there's tough conversations, but that doesn't mean they have to be a certain way. And so making sure our guys are held accountable in a positive way is certainly important to me.
So when a fan leaves the Knapp Center after watching your team play, what is the thing that you hope that they're saying about Drake basketball?
That they're connected, that they love each other, that they enjoy playing with each other, I think is really important to me. And just the amount of effort that they show is something that they're proud of. That's really all I hope for. Obviously, I'd love to win every game, but if we're taking care of those other things, I think the results will speak for themselves. And this isn't bad against anybody. And it's really a reflection on me, which I was so disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to get this group over their hump this year, and even more disappointed that we weren't able to do it at home at a more consistent level.
We had a lot of fun watching you guys in the Valley tournament, obviously, because I think after a really rough stretch towards the back third of the regular season, you guys kind of caught a spark in St. Louis, and fans like Brian and I are saying it's the Drake Invitational again at Arch Madness.
It was a fun run. I'll say that. I was super proud of our guys because there's a lot of people in this world, especially when they hear junk on social media and things probably aren't the most positive about you after you're going through a 9-game losing streak, which is understandable. So I was super proud of our guys, but I'll be honest with you. I was confident. I know that's really hard to believe from people that are outside of our program, but I was, and our team was. We knew it would be challenging, but we talked about, we wanted another shot at Belmont. And to do that, we had to play against a really good team that Scott had in Southern Illinois. And so we knew it wasn't going to be easy. And obviously they're a physical and a grinded out team. And they were a terrific rebounding team. The house kid kind of went off on us, but we were able to get through that. And our matchups against Belmont, and it made me feel a little bit better watching last night's Knicks game, that we were not the only one to lose 20-point leads in the second half. So, but we were up 25 against Belmont, who was by far the leader of our league. But when they went league by 2 or 3 games, but we were up 20 on them in the second half, and we knew they were dangerous. We know they're potent. And then even at their place, I think it was 190 or something. It was ludicrous. Nobody was guarding anybody. And so we knew that it was a matchup for us, that if things went our way, we could adjust a few things that we would be in it. And obviously you guys know the results. Our guys played great and I was proud of them. And unfortunately, Andrew broke his foot there. And when we played UIC, I'm not saying that would have made the biggest difference, but one of the things that we really struggled with was against them was rebounding. And Andrew, I know he's not the biggest cat, but he's one of our toughest. And without him, it really hurt us. And so we weren't able to get past them, but they were playing great. And Rob does a great job too. And so it would have been a tough task regardless.
You transitioned into the portal season and the recruiting season. Now that your roster is largely set, right? We had Brian Jones on, a Bradley assistant coach, on one of our earlier episodes, and he mentioned at this time of the year, when students get on campus for the summer, as he's a gym rat, he goes, this is maybe my favorite time of the year. So with your roster largely set, what does your June look like now? And what are your biggest priorities at this time of the year for your staff and your program?
Yeah, I agree. Brian's right on. It's such a fun time of the year because you get to spend so much time together. Campus is pretty quiet. You want to continue to build that connectivity with the new guys, with the old guys, all of that sort of stuff. So you're doing things off the court, on the court that builds that chemistry. And they don't have a lot of distractions other than hoops. They're in one class. And so that's such an enjoyable time to learn about your new guys, watching them, how they grow and with each other, building that trust both on and off the floor. It's really cool to see. And you'll learn a lot, but you'll learn a lot about personalities, how they're clicking, how they're meshing. You're doing it without a lot of distractions. It's a cool month. We'll bring our guys back on June 8th. They'll be back straggling in a little bit before that. But that's when we start our workouts, and we'll still continue. Like you guys said, last year we brought in 9 guys from the portal. This year we brought in 3. And 1 junior college kid, as you guys are well aware. And we're still a very much of a developmental program. We want to continue to develop our guys every single day. And that doesn't matter whether they're here 1 year or 5 years now. We want to make sure they're enjoying their experience, enjoying each other, continuing to love the game. But also, if a guy doesn't want to play in the NBA, honestly, I'm not sure I want him on our team. We want him to have that work ethic, that desire, that belief and confidence. Baylor Shireman, who I coached at South Dakota State for 3 years, he didn't have any other Division I offers. But man, you could see that desire and belief that he had in himself. And man, we just try to help continue to foster that, make sure we're providing an environment that they can work with each other and get better every single day. And you never know when dreams come true.
So looking forward here for the season ahead in schedule construction and things along those lines. And we know you get the 20 in the Valley, but how does the other 13, 14 games kind of shape up and your scheduling philosophy and something to possibly let the fans know to be looking forward to?
Yeah, it's something that is a craft. There's no doubt. Rob Klinkoff, who's on our staff, has done the scheduling for us when we were at South Dakota State. And then in the last couple of years here, he does a great job. And the philosophy is, number one, try to get as many wins as you possibly can. That's number one. And what helps that, right? What makes that happen? And so getting home games is certainly important. So trying to get as many home games as you possibly can, I think certainly helps. Having an administration that provides some resources to make that happen is certainly helpful as well. And then I love to be challenged as well. And you can look at schedules from South Dakota State. It was always one of the most challenging that anybody in the Summit League would face. Our schedule last year was challenging. And I'm telling you that this year, it's going to be challenging as well. I love to do that. I love to challenge our guys. Hopefully, with the expansion of the NCAA tournament, can we get closer to being a 2-bid league? Man, I hope so, because I think we're knocking on the door. And so hopefully we can make that happen. But you have to have some scheduling things go your way. And you have to make sure you're winning. You have to play them to be able to have a chance to win them. So to play some of those quad 1 games on the road or in a neutral spot is huge. When you go and get bought a bunch, that's usually not a great recipe for wins. So you got to be a little bit careful. But will we do that once maybe kind of see how it fits with the other things. But I think you guys have seen we're playing Wichita State and Kansas City with a doubleheader with Iowa State, which is pretty cool. 2 Iowa schools playing down there back to back. It's a cool situation for us. We're going out to Idaho Falls to playing an MTE with some very high level basketball teams. So we're excited about that. We have Charleston coming back, who's a great home game for us. And so those are some of the things that we have in place right now. Some of the other ones haven't been released yet, but we're going to try to get some home games in there and then obviously challenge ourselves as much as we can.
The Valley feels like it could be incredibly competitive again this year. The thing, Belmont did win by 2 or 3 games in the league, but then second place to 8th place, there was only a few games separating the rest of the league. And so what excites you about the most being a part of the Valley for your second season?
Yeah, like you said, the margins are so small. I mean, you think about that. You and I, we had a hard time with them at our place. But if we would have beat them at our place in the last game of the regular season, they would have finished 8th. That seems absurd. I had them. I picked him first or second. I can't remember, but just with the continuity that they had. And then obviously they go on and win the tournament. But just that challenge that you get every single time you step out onto the floor in the Valley. And that is what I look forward to. But in our era of transfer portal, NIL, I think you're seeing schools that maybe haven't committed to basketball the way maybe others have in the past. I think it certainly even closes the gap even more. The rosters that UIC, Valpo, Illinois State, Murray State, the players that they were able to retain was very impressive as well. And so when you say, hey, looking forward to this coming year, I'd expect probably nothing different than in the past, margins being very slim.
The Valley's got some great basketball environments, and you get to coach in front of a great basketball environment as well. And what's it like to coach in front of the crowd in the Knapp Center and just that experience?
Yeah, like I said, Brian, I mean, we could be working, I'll tell you that. I'm one of the luckiest dudes alive. I get to help young people achieve their goals and dreams and give them opportunities that their families only dream of. And so to be able to provide that opportunity at a school like Drake, where the experience that we provide, I'm very proud of. Not only do we have had great amount of success on the court, but academically, the degree that they're going to leave here with is something to be proud of. It's a rigorous curriculum. The education, being an educator, it means something to me. And that's important for our guys to understand. And then the support that we get in the Knapp Center, even when we were going through that tough stretch, man, they were trying to will us into victory some of those games. And we just couldn't get over the hump for the longest time. And that was so frustrating for all of us, but they kept showing up. They kept coming, and we're very fortunate that they do. And so to be able to put the roster that we've been able to put together this year and think the strides that we're going to make, I'm so excited. And for them to be able to watch this next edition of the Bulldogs.
You bet. We're gonna wrap up with just a couple of quick hitters, some softball questions. Favorite arena in the Valley besides Drake?
Oh, that's hard. I do like a fair amount of them, but I do Indiana State's probably with some of the history, tradition, and kind of the feel in there. I like that one.
Toughest player you had to prepare for this year in the Valley?
Yeah, there was several of them. There was some hard matchups for us. Chase Walker was an incredibly difficult matchup for us. He's certainly up there. Jaquan from Bradley, just with his speed, his ability to get downhill, and then defensively, he was a thief. He was certainly difficult. Crawford was a bear at UIC, and I'm missing a bunch. I know that. I'm just trying to think of teams we had the most difficult time with. Hornseth gave us fits at times. Those guys stand out, but they're across the board. I can promise you that.
Give us one thing that fans would be surprised to know about you.
that I'm basically an Uber driver every single night because my kids are so active in sports and I have 4 of them. So I'm pretty much an Uber driver on a part-time Uber driver
That's awesome.
without getting paid.
I have been there.
It's
So
fun though. I'm not complaining.
one question we love to ask is, if Brian Dutler and I come to a Drake home game next season to support you and the Bulldogs, where would you send us for a pregame meal? And what is your go-to order at that place?
Yeah, I'd have to say a couple places. So Peggy's is like a hot spot. Now you hit or miss. And you're really not eating. I'm buying you a beer probably. And then as far as food go, I'm a pizza guy. So I'll go with Doco right on the corner of across from Drake. And I love a little thin crust hamburger, pepperoni, green pepper pizza, baby.
All right. Yeah, we will try that for sure. For sure. So, Coach Henderson, we want to thank you for joining us on Deep in the Valley. This was fantastic. We really appreciate your time. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I just appreciate you guys. And man, to be the first one acting head coach on there, man, you guys were hard up, number one. And then number two, if you're relying on Aaron Thomas to fester some of these relationships, man, you might need to go another route.
I know. Yeah, he's just one of the guys that we've got in our pocket.
He's the best, man. He's the best.
We
Former
really
AD.
appreciate AT. So that's another episode of Deep in the Valley. We appreciate you listeners spending a part of your week with us talking Missouri Valley Conference basketball. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and follow along as we cover everything happening across the Valley all year long, from Cedar Falls to Des Moines, Nashville to Normal, Carbondale to Chicago. We'll be here every week to tell the stories that make the Valley special. For Brian Dutler, I'm Chris Bowser. We'll see you next time, Deep in the Valley.